Welcome to Creative. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Jason Howe of Rotosound Strings. This is great fun, actually, Jason, because I've used your strings on and off for, well, I don't know,
Yeah,
45 years, I think.
yeah. Well, I remember dealing with you back in the mid '90s, not long after my dad died.
Yeah.
So it's good to re-establish contact. With,
So it's really good to sort of sit here, and because we're in the wilds of Sevenoaks, if there is such a place as the wilds of Sevenoaks.
rock and
Um,
roll epicenter
yeah,
of Kent.
absolutely. So how long have you been in this building?
This building here since the since about 1983, and my dad moved the factory from Bexley Heath
Oh,
in the late '70s. Because he liked Sevenoaks, he bought a house in Sevenoaks, and he wanted to live close to the factory. But in all honesty, it's probably one of the worst places you could ever put a factory,
right.
because it's not really, it's not like known as a manufacturing
No,
belt. Sevenoaks,
no, hardly.
it's a stockbroker belt,
It absolutely is.
and we're not breaking any stocks here, only strings.
Yeah, that's
But yeah, so but no, we have a good staff, and we don't have that many issues with employment. You know,
mm.
so
So. How long has the company been running for?
it started. If I dig out my letters, my father's letters, then I can trace the origins back to 1955,
Blimey.
um, and then from then on, really. So originally, I think it was called orchestral and jazz strings in the
Right,
late '50s,
right.
because then it was
Yeah,
basically orchestral and jazz strings that he
yeah.
made.
Amazing.
So yeah, that was pre rock and roll.
Yeah.
Then it was he come up with a brand name that he couldn't register, called Top Strings,
Oh,
and which top isn't a word you can register. So it
right,
became Rotop, which was roto, the Latin word for round.
right.
And then in 1966, I think, he changed the name. Rotosound was born.
Right.
So we've got string packs out there with top strings on them.
Oh, amazing. That's
And it's
incredible.
been Rotosound, yeah, ever since John Entwistle went to America in 1966 or whatever, and took out a suitcase of swing bass strings.
Because obviously, your the people that use your strings basically are a list of just about all the important people in sort of popular music and rock and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's
It's astonishing.
well. I think what happened is because my dad started in southeast London
Yeah,
in Bexley Heath,
yeah,
Blackfen actually, but Bexley Heath mainly. It was close enough to London to be able to get in to see all these bands.
yeah.
You also had Vox in Dartford,
Yes, yeah,
so
yeah. Near Crayford. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
my dad was good friends with Tom Jennings.
Right.
Tom Jennings hired Dick Denny, who
Mm,
designed the AC30.
mm.
My dad not only played violin in a band with Dick Denny, but was in the RAF
Oh,
with
right.
Dick Denny
Oh,
in the 1940s. So they were friends anyway.
right.
So Dick was busy designing the AC30, and my dad was getting the string business going.
Right. See, now
So
this is something that has not come up in the podcasts before that you've just highlighted.
yeah,
There is a definite sort of, I think it's Tony Buzan, the guy who did all the mind mapping stuff, spoke about like these sort of groups of people, like mastermind groups, where you get people who know one another, who just like the guitar thing is a good example of that. Clapton and Beck and Jimmy Page.
yeah,
Sort of
yeah,
being in that same sort of area, knowing one another, etc.
yeah,
And that is really fascinating. Where you get like a real creative group of people
yeah,
who actually know one another pre the
yeah.
actual.
They pioneered stuff, but
Yeah,
they were friends before they pioneered it all.
yeah,
Um, and it was that time that you had the Who in West London, and you had Pink Floyd had moved into London,
yeah,
and all these bands, and of course Hendrix come over here.
Yeah.
It was managed by
Chas Chandler.
Chas Chandler, wasn't it? Yeah, and then
yeah.
Mitch Mitchell was the drummer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Jimmy was like, although he was American, he was pretty much embedded in
Yes.
the London music scene.
Yes.
So
Definitely,
we
yeah.
had a really clever guy working for us called Alan Markison, who's in all those photos with all these bands.
Right.
A lot of people think it's my dad in those photos, but it's not.
Oh. Right.
He is in some of them.
Yes.
Like the two you can see up there.
Yeah.
With John Entwistle and Noel Redding.
Yeah. I'm just looking at loads of photographs that are hanging on the wall.
Yeah,
here at
but
the
the,
moment,
the Hendrix picture is with Alan Markison.
Right. That's around the side, isn't it?
Yeah, and Alan was a marketing genius
Yeah.
because he was doing these pictures of all these rock stars holding Rotosound string packs in 1967.
Yeah.
A long time before a lot of other companies cottoned on.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what's interested me about what you've said about your dad's company being, you know, jazz strings and orchestral strings and the rest of it early on, because obviously you're so well placed at the beginning of, you know, sort of rock and roll and all the rest of it. It's already,
60s.
yeah, absolutely. That is that sort of thing of being, you know, let's just use the word for the moment, accidentally in the right place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But being able to see what's coming.
Yeah.
But actually being able to see what's coming.
Yeah.
You know, in a way that other people probably didn't see. You know, because how many string companies are there who make violin strings who didn't, who are still doing what they did back when, you know, whenever. So I think that's a fascinating thing. So you obviously, because you know, you must have either got interested in the fact that your dad was running this company, because obviously it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion, is it?
Your son would take it over. No.
Exactly. No. So what was the thing that made that happen? For, you know.
Well, I was always, it was, you know, I've been involved in the company from such a young age because my dad used to take me to trade shows. I used to go to Frankfurt every year.
Yeah.
When I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
You know, there's pictures of me at Frankfurt in mid-70s.
Yeah.
And, you know, I used to go up the factory, and I remember standing outside the Bexley Heath factory when it was being built.
Yeah.
I remember playing with the bricks, you know, the
Right.
blue bricks that built the factory.
Right.
And I'd just always been around it. My dad always played music, and my mum played, and I was always interested in it. So I always thought I could do a reasonable job of running it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when my dad died, I didn't ever have any doubts that I wouldn't make it successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't know. But,
because you're an engineer, really, aren't you, as well? Because I mean, you build the machines.
Build the machines, yeah.
Which I think is just astonishing, actually, Jason. Really,
well, my dad did it. It's like a bit like, you know, if your dad was a psychologist or whatever.
Yeah.
You would probably.
Yeah, okay, I get that.
So to say when somebody comes in, and you show them all the machines, they kind of look at it and they're like,
yeah,
wow.
It does.
It's like, but when you've incrementally grown up with your dad in the garage on a lathe making stuff, and I've got this engine, I've got to take out a Bugatti. Jace, can you give us a hand?
Yeah.
I'm 10 years old. I was passing him spanners and undoing stuff, taking carburetors off him.
Yeah.
It was like I'd just grown up with all that stuff.
Yeah,
so it was like, I know it's a bit cheesy or maybe arrogant even, but it wasn't that hard to suddenly start thinking about building machines.
Well, but obviously that I teach, but I think that's the point about teaching kids when they're young.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not, there's no big deal, right?
No.
And that's why it's important for younger people to learn something like a musical instrument, because it opens that capability. And there again, that would have been true with things like tinkering around with cars, because now that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Because
now
everything's
you've got to be an electronic whiz.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, my dad said something to me which resonated a lot at the time and still does now. And he just said to me when I was about 18, he said, go and learn how to make stuff.
Yeah.
He said, you'll never be reliant on anybody because you'll just get on and do it.
Yeah.
You won't have to.
That's great.
So I did that. I did 5 years my HNC C, I think they call it, back then at West Kent College. I was in the workshop for a year making stuff. I did 4 years day release, learning all the academic stuff. But I was always more interested in the hands-on stuff. It was like, yeah, whatever, the paperwork and
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm building machines at the moment, and I've got ideas now for more machines once these are finished. So
Yeah.
it never ends really. But the minute you give up the manufacturing, I think you throw that away.
Yes.
And suddenly you're now reliant on the supplier.
Yeah.
And you know the prices are only going to go up.
Yeah.
You can't control where the product goes. So
Yeah.
To me, it's the manufacturer.
Well, it's interesting because again, that's another thing. If you think about this country, we obviously built the Industrial Revolution came off the back end of people actually building the machines that made the stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really where if there was a sort of a genius within the country, we had that. Yeah. But again, by the time we get to that period, whatever happened with the big sell-off of British industry.
Yeah.
And then things being shipped in.
The problem is with it is it's actually it's actually quite difficult to make stuff efficiently. Britain can't do that anymore.
Well, obviously not.
No. And they don't want to invest in it. There's no R&D.
No.
They just think the solution is to buy it in.
Yes.
Well, I have this little thing that I say to my reps, and I say, well, why would our customer want to send his money abroad?
Yeah.
When he can spend it in the UK and keep that money in our economy?
Yeah.
But what we've done by buying in and gorging ourselves on imports is we've just made other countries very rich.
Yes.
And we have nothing left. We've sold off the family silver.
Yes.
Anyway, don't get me started on my political.
No, but I share your point of view. No, seriously, I do, because I think there's often a lot of short-term decisions that are made, like, well, we just don't worry about that. We can cut costs and bring this in.
Yeah.
But the long-term effects of those are pretty catastrophic, really.
Yeah.
Because you're then, well, you've basically, whatever metaphor you want to use, you killed the goose that lays the golden egg type of thing.
I think there's a saying. I think it might have been Henry Ford that said, if what you can achieve if you achieve something great with no effort, then it has no value.
Yeah.
But if you achieve something great with a lot of effort, then it has a lot of value.
Yeah.
And it can also disappear quite quickly.
Yeah.
The first thing I said. But so I just think, the project I'm on it was a 2-year project, and I've done this before back in 15 years ago, where I'd had a 2 or 3 year plan for building machines. But when you can build machinery for a fifth of the cost of buying that machinery, the payback is very fast.
Yeah, of course.
Suddenly they will just keep making strings forever.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have to kind of do the sums, and you have to have a long view of the whole thing, really.
I like what you said, the Henry Ford thing, because that's true of music, let's face it, isn't it? You've got to put the effort in.
Yep.
And if you put the effort in...
If the algorithm does it, then you end up with a load of crap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
CGD.
Yeah, so once you sort of took over the company then, what was the sort of the climate, financial climate like then for selling strings? Would you say?
Well, this company was in big trouble. It was really, we very nearly lost the company because there was everything that could be wrong was wrong, and it wasn't necessarily my dad's fault, but my dad had been unwell for 5 or 6 years, and he wasn't really in control of running the business from the late 80s to when he died in 94. So there was a lot of things that needed putting right, whether it was packaging, marketing, production, sales teams, pricing, costing, everything to do with the business needed fixing. And it was a little bit like the old sticking plasters you were going
Yeah.
you're patching things up.
Yeah.
But I was always trying to sort. I was like, I had this thing in my head. It was like, what's the hole in the bucket?
Yeah.
Because if I can find out where the hole in the bucket
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and I can plug that up,
Yeah.
then I can get on and fix
Yeah.
it. And the hole in the bucket was the production.
Right.
The way the work was fed onto the shop floor.
So how did you spot that? Because that's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
You know,
was-
because it's, you know, often problems are.
Yeah.
It's interesting this because this is
Yeah.
another little thing
this,
about.
this could go on for a long time.
Yes. Yeah. It's this idea
Yeah.
of complexity, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like when you play a piece of music. Let's say, for instance, somebody's trying to play something that's really difficult. It's often not one thing that's difficult. It's a complexity thing. So, you know, you can slow it down and simplify this part and da 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 da, and then you can get this bit. You know, you can practice this bit so you can get the chord changes, blah, and gradually you put it back together, and then you can do the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a complex issue, but when you're looking at it from a piece of music, it's all there in front of you,
Yeah.
or it is in
Yeah.
your head. You could work it
Yeah.
out. But when you're looking at something like a business, it's sometimes really, I would have thought, really difficult to go, as you say, find the hole in the bucket.
I'll tell you exactly what led me to looking at it quite quickly. And I don't know if you ever remember John Harvey Jones.
Yeah.
He was the
Yeah,
troubleshooter.
yeah, that's
He had
right.
that
You did the thing
series,
about
yeah.
chucking a hand grenade and stand back and see what happens. Type of thing.
Yeah. Well, he said a lot of things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
one thing he said once, he said, if you're manufacturing, your labour costs shouldn't be any higher than 20% of your turnover. So
Right.
if you turn over, for example, £100,000, your labour costs shouldn't be any more than £20,000.
Right.
He said that is the target figure for your
Right.
labour cost. And so instantly I went to
Right.
production, and I started looking at it, and I started looking at all the hours that we were losing because of the
Right.
way the work was organised, and our labour cost was a lot higher than 20%.
Right.
In fact, the profit that was, the money that was saved on the labour went straight down eventually to the bottom line and become the profit of the company, because the inefficiencies were down to the way the work was put on there. And I'll just give you one quick example, just to give you a very good idea of how much of an anorak I was about it. My dad, when they made strings, my dad would always say, I want the strings hanging up straight so they drop down, and they have to hang, the hole in the ball end goes over a bit of wire. So the operator would take the string off the machine and he'd thread the ball end over the bit of wire. And it wasn't super slow,
No.
but it was 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I looked at that and I'm looking at all these people, you know, and I'm looking at 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah.
and
You
thinking,
calculate that. Yeah.
why don't we put a plastic tray in front of the machine, like a gutter?
Yeah.
I'll go down B&Q, I'll get some gutter in, and I want you to make the string, chuck it in the tray. That's not even a second.
No.
That doesn't take a second.
No.
Actually, I'm saving 4 seconds,
Yeah.
and I'm making
Yeah.
750,000 strings a month.
Yeah.
Oh, I've just saved 100 hours production time.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And suddenly, from that point, I went through everything in
Yeah.
the manufacturing process
Yeah.
to that degree.
Yeah.
And I got strings downstairs now being made. Some of our bass strings being made faster than we used to make guitar strings.
Amazing.
And bass strings are a lot more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just really, and you know what we're doing now with the new machines is going to further improve the output.
Yeah.
So that was it really. You know, if you're making widgets, whatever widget you're making, it's about how quick that lot's coming off,
Yeah.
how quick they're coming off the machine.
Now, here's a question from what you've said. That John Harvey Jones.
Yeah, troubleshooter.
Yeah. Because I used to watch the program, but I bought the books
he
as
did
well.
the Morgan Car Company, didn't
Yeah,
he?
that's right.
That
He
was
did.
quite famous for
Yeah,
it,
that's right. And sometimes, of course, he'd say things that people just like.
Oh yeah, forget it. Yeah,
Forget it, right?
they wouldn't change. People
No.
wouldn't change.
No, I know. So, what interested me about that was that particular thing that he said. Do you remember how you spotted that? Was it in a book or was it on the program?
I read one of his books.
Yeah.
but I can't remember, to be honest, whether.
But you obviously impacted you
Yeah, because I was
massively, didn't it?
well, because I always thought, and the thing is, my dad in the 1980s he built these six spindle machines which we use now, and they weren't running properly. They weren't making great strings, and I knew this, but I run the machines through and I calculated the output if they were run properly. And I said to my wife, I said, if we get these machines running properly, we're going to make more strings than we know what to do with efficiently. So it was partly, it was that whole thing, but I can't remember exactly, with John Harvey Jones, whether it was the program I watched or the book. Yeah, it was something, it's like one of those things that stuck in your mind. I think at the time I'd looked back at some of the old company figures and I heard that said, and I knew what our labour costs were, and the disparity was like huge. So it was like, okay, this is where the problem is. This is the hole in the bucket.
Yeah. That's really good.
We changed our production system in May 1998, and the stock level at the end of the month, it went through the roof.
Right.
It just went from just about manufacturing what we needed to having a lot of stock.
So then, how did you get the sales up to compensate that?
Well, yeah, I mean that was
because that's another thing, isn't it? Because you can have a load of stock,
no sales,
and no sales.
Well, you're then in a situation where you can start offering deals.
So that's how you did, right?
And you don't want to go mad.
No, but
you can start getting more products out there.
Yeah.
You can start supplying people quicker and faster.
Yeah.
You can export into countries that you couldn't afford to export into.
Right.
Suddenly you're going, India.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they won't spend more. They won't buy the strings for more than 2p a set.
Yeah.
I can now sell them for 1.8.
Yeah.
Just give you an example.
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah.
But so suddenly your export markets, where in the past it was always like, well, we can't sell there, we can't compete in that market.
See, I'm interested in that. Although we're talking about a business. Okay, it's to do with music, obviously, because you're making strings. But of course, the core concept of what you're saying is applicable to anything to do. Particularly like musicians and bands and all the rest of it, because of course you've got the same problem about how much the band costs, and how much revenue you can make, or how much putting a lot of gigs or whatever it's going to cost.
That's why I'm doing solo gigs from now.
Yeah,
raking all the money. I wish.
Right, but you see, I find that really interesting. So I want you to tell me a little bit about your musical endeavours, because we'll come back to I'm sure we'll come back to the strings and everything.
It's all intertwined.
Yeah, of course it is, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know that you write and you play and obviously you've done that for a long time anyway. So.
I've written songs ever since I realised I couldn't play the guitar. I've never really been. I've just not got that ability to. I can play. I always kind of thought the songwriting aspect. I like the idea of that a lot more because I'm creating something from nothing.
Yeah.
It's like and I like the lyrical side of it where I can get stuff out that I want to say lyrically.
Yes.
And I know loads of great guitar players anyway. So.
Of course you do. Well, you know loads of them, don't you?
So no, it's just I've always written songs, and of late I've got more back into it more, which is great.
Yeah. So I know because you've been doing quite a few sort of recordings and sort of playing and stuff. So explain what your style of music is, because obviously. You do that darn sight better than me.
Yeah, I guess if you were to take, in my head, and it might not be how it comes over, but in my head, it would be a cross between 60s bands like the Doors or the Byrds, and 80s bands like the Buzzcocks, and 70s bands like the Buzzcocks, 80s bands like the House of Love, or kind of jangly 60s indie, maybe a bit folky as well. So, just trying to, I love Syd Barrett. I love I love a lot of guitarists that probably most guitarists wouldn't think guitarists, but
Yeah, but the interesting thing with this,
I like the art form.
when you actually write,
Yeah,
one of the worst, and this is one of the things when I sort of teach songwriting
Yeah.
from a sort of lateral thinking sort
Yeah.
of perspective. One of the worst things you can do as a songwriter is to be actually have your virtuoso head on. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because immediately the idea of a song falls apart,
yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah,
You know, you
Yeah.
have to approach a song from the point of view of it, like it's almost like sort of giving birth to something.
yeah,
You know, it's
Yeah.
terrible saying that from a man's
Simple.
point of view, but
yeah,
you've got to keep it simple,
yeah,
and you've got to allow
Yeah.
the song to talk to you.
yeah,
And of course, the biggest problem is how, you've got to simplify your playing down. And interestingly, there's lots of little anecdotal things. I mean, there are very few great guitar players who make great songwriters. Actually, if you look at those
It's
sort of players,
just the other end of the spectrum.
It
isn't
is.
because it's like, the songwriter probably isn't. I mean, take somebody like Bob Dylan.
yeah,
Take something like Knocking on Heaven's Door, which
Yeah.
is like 3.5
yeah,
chords. Or
exactly.
I mean, that to me is genius.
Yeah.
As well as the guy that the great virtuoso guitar player, who could just play like.
Well, there's a story of somebody found one of Hendrix's guitars that were knocking around his house,
Yeah.
and there was one that was strung right-handed, right?
Yeah.
A right-handed guitar strung right-handed that he'd obviously been playing right-handed for songwriting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that, to me, and obviously Hendrix could play the guitar whatever way around it didn't
Yeah,
really matter,
yeah.
right? But the point was that when he was sort of songwriting, he was doing it's basics, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's
We
the
don't
basics.
need your
No.
palette isn't
Exactly.
that great when you're songwriting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I always thought when I read this, it sort of blew my mind because it's like,
Yeah.
of course, because if you look at really great songwriters who are guitarists, they tend to be either people who can switch off the virtuoso guitar
Yeah.
bit, which I think this is probably true of maybe Clapton. He could sort of sit down and write a great song that doesn't necessarily require
No.
lots of great lead guitar playing or whatever in it. And so when you get the guitarist who can write a great riff that becomes a great song, so the one that springs to mind actually is Ritchie Blackmore.
Yeah.
But if you look at Ritchie Blackmore's history, he was a session player
Yeah.
for years,
Yeah.
right? Being
Yeah.
the guitarist for whoever, working with Screaming Lord Such or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and it's all that sort of thing that he could do a job.
Yeah.
Right, so he could do that,
Yeah.
switch it off,
Yeah.
and you want a riff, and here it is,
Yeah.
right, type of thing. So that really fascinates me.
But then you take all the great songwriters, and I mean, if you go, John Lennon, David Bowie, Neil Young,
Absolutely.
Bob Dylan. I mean, to me, and this is only my opinion, but the song is like the king.
Yes.
The song is like everything has to come under that.
Yes.
I don't know.
I totally
I
believe.
mean, that's just my view.
No, but it's my view
Because-
as well. Totally.
It's yeah, and I mean, you can serve that song in different ways, and people can. I mean, we just did this gig in Budapest.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We've kind of gone a little bit acoustic because we had this Grey Lady gig, so we couldn't go down there and thrash out our sort of noisy garage rock with me effing this and effing that.
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
It wasn't going to work.
No.
So we said, right, let's pick some. Keyboard player Julie picked some of my more acoustic-y songs, and we went to Budapest and we had this chap, Steve Carr from the Electric Rooms,
Yeah.
who was just going to sit in on the 3 gigs, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I just want somebody sitting in on all those songs, and because I don't want a lot played on them.
No.
But what he added to those songs, when I listen back to it now, I absolutely love what he done. It was like total respect,
Yeah.
because he not only he played, but he knew exactly what was required,
Yeah.
and that to me was such a
Yeah.
huge thing.
Well, it's that sort of
I
thing.
wouldn't change any of it. If I listened to it now and we recorded it, I'd just say, well, just play what you played.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
So
you know.
when I've sort of you know, there was an experience where I was recording a song which was sort of a jazzy sort of number, because I had this project with Roger Moore's son, which was one of those things. It was like, look, you know, all, you know, it's going to be, this is a dead cert type of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And we did some really good stuff, and one of them was a sort of a little sort of jazzy ballad. And I was in the studio, and this engineer said to me, "Do you know what this needs now?" And I said, "Yeah, it needs a muted trumpet." And he went, "Yeah." He said, "And that's always a good sign that you know a song is really happening, because it speaks to you."
Yeah.
And it's that type of thing that
Yeah.
if you can listen to what the song is telling you, and it doesn't matter whether you've got 2 people in a song,
Yeah.
or, you know, 6 people, or got the entire, you know, London Philharmonic, the song still needs to be able to communicate with you. And I think that's the thing where people often,
It's got to touch you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Emotionally.
it's got to speak to you. You know.
And that can be with the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and that's more important. I've got lots of things I want to say about things, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, and you can get them out through the songs. And yeah, I mean, like, you know, a lot of lyrics, a lot of the great lyricists like Dylan and John Lennon, that stuff really hits home, almost as important,
Yeah.
maybe as important as the melody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, I think that sort of creative way of seeing the world, where it's not so logical, like where you sort of go, well, I don't know what he did. You know, it's talking about that guitar work. You know, it's like, I don't know what he did, but it was just amazing type of thing.
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
Because it's not a logical thing, is it? It's not like, oh, he did.
I've never met the guy.
No.
I mean, he'd only heard the songs a few times.
Yeah.
And it was only when I watched the video back of the gig, and I just thought, I don't know if anybody else would have felt it exactly like he did.
So.
Maybe it's because he's from that era or whatever.
I think so.
You know.
So this takes us back now to
Yeah.
the thing about the, because we had a bit of a chat about the guitarists of, you know, yesteryear.
Yeah.
Of what it was that was going on in the UK.
That's not going on now.
But it doesn't seem to be going on now. I mean, there are a few. I'm not saying this isn't happening.
No.
You know, I think we were saying that maybe there was, people were hungrier for stuff. You know, and it wasn't a choice that you were. It is a bit like the Keith Richards sort of thing. You know, Mick Jagger's thing about Keith Richards was he has to play the guitar. That's the point.
Yeah.
And I think that's true with a lot of those guitarists of that period. You had to play. You know, it wasn't a choice.
No.
And okay, you could look at it and think it's a sort of a counterculture thing and blah blah blah. Yeah, maybe, but that was what you had to do. It wasn't like, well, shall I play my Xbox or shall I play my guitar type of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
There wasn't. I mean, I guess back then in the '60s, there wasn't the choice. I guess, you know, probably very crude, but it was like you become a footballer or something, or you become a rock star.
Yeah, maybe
You know.
there was that was probably the choice, but I don't even think there was that choice anyway, was there?
No.
Particularly, I think really it was something that you did because that's what you did.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, but having said that, I mean, I've been out and about just playing locally, and there's a lot of good bands around this area.
Oh yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I've got a young guy that works with us, works with James, our drummer, who's got the school in Music Station.
Right, yeah.
Paul, who's a great, Paul Crisp, he's a great singer, great player, and so yeah, he's a young guy, you know, he's in his 20s, so
Yeah.
there's a great band I saw down in Ashford, they're called The Wreck, I think.
All right.
They were great, played at the Glass House, so yeah, it's just, the problem is, you get so stuck and entrenched in your own era of music.
Oh, you
know,
can.
It's like,
Yeah,
you
you
know.
can. But I do think, you know, as
It's
you
hard
said, it is tricky now. You know, because it's, and I've got some friends who DJs and you know, rappers and stuff like that, and there is definitely within that, something you sort of go, now these guys are gifted, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just using the technology. These guys
Mm.
have got something, and I don't understand it.
It's
I
if
don't.
you can get your head out of that space that thinks
Yeah, yeah, and I don't
it's not.
understand how they do it, but I can see
Yeah,
that they've got something. So it's not the case that doesn't work, but unfortunately, and this might have been a criticism levelled at the electric guitar in the early days, that it wasn't a proper instrument, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. Um, that really proper music has to be played on acoustic instruments and all that sort of stuff. And
yeah,
that was
yeah,
certainly a situation in the '60s, wasn't it? Because
yeah,
Dylan had that thing when he
yeah.
suddenly,
Yeah, well, you went electric,
and
and
he was called a
everybody.
traitor or whatever it
Yeah,
was. So so it's not necessarily something that is just to do with technology as we see it now, but it's the fact of, like that thing you're talking about, songs, that sort of thing, that there is something animate about a piece of art that does something to you as in the process of you creating it as well.
yeah. Well, it's like vinyl. I guess it's like vinyl, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like analog tape and all that stuff. It's like there's just something about being involved in the moment and picking up an album cover and opening the sleeve or taking
Yes.
the record out and putting it on.
Yes. There's an art. That's an
yeah,
art form in
yeah,
the way, if you see what I mean. And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that whole thing of putting the album on is sort of almost part of the art
yeah,
form. You know what I
absolutely,
mean?
yeah. It's I saw something funny the other day where it said about what was it about vinyl? Anyway, I'll come back to that. I'll remember it. But no, I mean, I'm just. I guess you just think you're getting old when it's like I love my vinyl and all that stuff, all the old stuff. But it's hard to shake off the influences and the stuff you listen to in your
Yes.
teens.
Yes.
And my dad brought home albums by lots of bands when I was in my teens. He brought home like albums by The Jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
He brought home albums by ELO,
Yeah.
albums by Reckless Eric,
Yeah.
Stiff Lot,
Yeah, yeah.
Nick Lowe, and
Yeah, yeah,
Elvis
yeah.
Costello.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he brought the records home. My dad wasn't into it, but he gave those records to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've still got those records. It's like, so yeah, it's.
But I think actually, what the thing that we've got to be careful of is that there was something magical within that stuff, of people creating music that was making a statement, and that's definitely true of all that, stiff records and all that sort of stuff. People were making a statement of something. The music had some sort of validity. It was sort of making an emotional statement about whatever the situation was, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris Difford lives near me,
Yeah.
and I went to see him play just before Christmas. He was doing like a fundraising thing for a church that's in the village, and it was sort of like a "this is how I wrote this song" type of thing. It was absolutely brilliant because he was totally on fire actually that night, because he was hilarious. He was telling all the stories about Squeeze being on tour in America and everything.
Yeah.
And
He was the lyricist, really.
amazing,
Yeah.
very amazing lyricist,
Yeah.
and he was explaining how these songs were written and all that sort. But it was funny, and I thought, well, but they were actually saying, well, this is where I grew up, South London, on an estate, and these things were happening around me, type of thing.
Yeah,
And it was a
definitely.
social comment,
Yeah.
which again, if you and obviously your material is very much like that. It's about where you are, where you live.
The last one, that 7 Mile Lane.
Yeah, yeah. It is
Well,
sort of
you know that. 'Cause
Yeah,
you
yeah.
lived.
It's lived right near. So,
Yeah.
so the thing about that is there is a magic in the music, and that's true with old recordings of the old jazz players, the early rock and roll players, and all that. Those recordings, like the chess recordings and stuff, you listen to them, and it's like as electrifying,
Yeah.
now as
Yeah.
it was then.
Mm.
And you think, well, that is the bit that we need to be able to keep hold of somehow. And it's
Making
difficult because we don't know what it is. Is that,
No, it's-
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a combination of so many things, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, all I know is that when I listen to a lot of those old albums, it's because, I guess, there's this thing Brian Eno did recently about new modern music is so contrived, and it's basically, oh, that's a great verse, we cut and paste the drum track. And so you never get 3 minutes or 4 minutes of a song that is actually slightly different all the way through.
Exactly.
Because at some point, some buggers cut and paste one bit of it.
Yes.
And I've done that, and then I think, oh, I mustn't do that.
But the thing is, it's like you could do that.
It makes it sterile, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it can. But the point is that some people, this is where I was saying about the DJs, some people could do that, and it's not sterile. And it's that bit, well, we don't know what that is, you know, because, again, it's not logical. I don't think those answers are logical. There's some sort of emotional feeling about something, which is a subliminal thing, that no, you can do it there, but you can't do it here, type of thing.
Yeah,
and somebody goes, well, why not? And you go, I don't know.
Well, you do this. The human brain is amazing, isn't it? Because
Yes.
it picks out all this stuff, you know, and something will work or won't work, and
Yes.
you know.
And it's interesting that you should say that Brian Eno said that.
Yeah.
Because Brian Eno is famous for recording things and cutting them up and sticking them on tape and all the rest of it, and he did in the early days, and all that sort of ambient music.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, he obviously can get how that works, how he can do. I mean, Heroes is a good example of this, the track Heroes.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to that, it's the same chord progression, which is a bit of a weird length, right? Because it doesn't sort of make sense. But the way that Bowie then puts the lyrics over it, it doesn't matter. It's like, well, he didn't come in straight away there, but the next time round he doesn't wait. He comes in straight away, but it's a longer lyric line.
If the lyrics, and I've had this discussion with our chaps in the band, because it's like I might write stuff and it's got an extra 2 beats, or it's a half a bar, something like that. And I say, well, I never thought of that. I didn't have any real musical training, so I never thought of that. All I thought about was the length of the phrase and how it scanned. And I think that's probably what happened with the Bowie song. And also, who I think is the greatest exponent of that, and that's Syd Barrett. And you take a song like Bike, you know, where, you know, I've got a bike, you can ride it if you like, got basket and belt, things to make it look good. I'd give it to you if I could, but I borrowed it. Well, you know, who would stick "but I borrowed it" on the end? It's just like it, because you think that, but you know, you think, what's it? I got "but you right if I look good to you if I could," because "could" is the one that rhymes with the word before, the line before. But I borrowed it doesn't rhyme with anything.
No.
But it makes it so interesting.
No, that's what
because somebody goes, "What? Did I just hear that right?"
Yeah, well, it's like Bowie's thing,
clever.
isn't it? With, you know, like, I wish I could swim like dolphins can swim. It's like, but what's this got to do with Heroes? It's like, you know, and he does another one with crocodiles or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, where does that come
but
from?
What is it? It doesn't have to. It only has to make sense. It's only what you make of it.
Yes, of course it is. Yeah,
you know,
and there's an emotional kick to stuff where you can go, I get that.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not. It's not a logical, literal reason why that works, but it works because it just does.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Once somebody's decided, whoever's writing that song has decided, you know, probably "Hey Jude" was probably "Hey Jules," wasn't it, about John Lennon's son? And he probably just thought, oh, maybe Jude sounds better or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other interesting one like this is yesterday, of course, was ham and eggs or something.
Scrambled eggs.
Scrambled eggs or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, for the first.
Until he could think of a title.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So.
It is. I mean, I think, and Paul McCartney said this, hasn't he, famously, a lot, that people say, "How do you do it?" And he's, I don't know.
No, exactly.
It's just because you just do it, don't you? It's
just
something
that's
your
right.
brain.
Which again, it's the same thing that I was saying. There's no logical, literal way, and of course, you know, we say, you know, we teach songwriting, but you don't actually. You inspire people to create music, which is a slightly different thing.
It's a hard thing to teach, isn't it?
Well, you can't because again, it's not logical.
No.
You could say, well, look, you could try this and see how that goes, and from an editing point of view, you can say, right, okay, so here are some of the type of tricks that people use when they want to finish off a song. Right, you know, you can do this. You get rid of the last verse, like a poem. Get rid of the first verse, get rid of the last verse, and all that sort of thing. You know, kill your children type of thing.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing of, you know, and maybe that doesn't scan so well there, blah blah blah. But that's really when you're trimming it up.
Yeah, well,
That's not
it'll
when you're
find its
creating.
feet, won't it? I mean,
Yeah,
you know, is it too long? Is it this need another verse? Or
yeah, yeah.
certain things, you know, certain things definitely work, some things definitely don't work. But there is no real, you know. And I remember reading, like, I'm a big ELO fan and Jeff Lynne fan, you know, who's, but yeah, he said the great thing about music, the one rule is there's no rules. And,
Exactly.
does it sound good? Like, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the last rule of jazz, isn't it? If it sounds good,
Yeah.
don't matter why it should work or not. It doesn't
No.
sound good, you know.
No. It's, you know, yeah, I could talk about music all day, but it's yeah.
So that really fascinates me. I mean, also interestingly, because you meet lots and lots and lots of players who are, you know,
Top of their game.
absolutely top of their
The
game.
big guns.
So,
Yeah.
what do you actually see anything that you could go? Yeah, there is something about that unifies a lot of these people. There is a little bit of, and I don't want to use star quality, but you know what I'm saying, is that there's a little bit of something about them that make them go, oh yeah, that's that.
I don't know really. I've never thought about it, and I've met such a, you know, this year, I've met a diverse range of people. You know, I was at the Viva La Rock Awards back in the summer. You know, I met Glenn Matlock from the Pistols, and I met Steve Diggle from the Buzzcocks, who I know very well. At the NAMM show, I met Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses, who I know really well. James Lomenzo, played with Megadeth, playing with John Fogerty at the moment. Billy Sheehan, obviously. Everybody who's bass player knows Billy. Fantastic player. No, I don't know. I've just known them as those people for years, but they're just really at the top of their game, you know, in different ways. It's fascinating because it's not something you go and do an exam and I'm a great pop star.
No, of course you
because
don't.
I've got this exam.
No,
you know, it's like you can't do that. It's you either have what it takes and whatever that is.
It's the have what it takes bit. It's that bit I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Because obviously these people have got to be really committed to what they do in some shape or form to get to that level of being who they are.
Yeah.
And I've puzzled over this because when I've taught people, some of the best people I've taught, I didn't realise how good they were going to be, and it almost like they crept up on me.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why I'm asking that question, because it's like there is something.
Yeah, because you couldn't find out either.
No.
You couldn't spot it either.
No. That's the point I'm getting at.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
when you step back, you sort of go, well, hang on, there is that. You do see something, but it's not. Oh, this guy came in and it was like he did this, got an amazing ear. But it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
There is a commitment. There's definitely a commitment, and
you
that's
wouldn't
why.
see. I mean, you only know that because of what their work is, don't you? On
Yes,
the commitment side.
but
when
it's
you
almost,
meet them,
but they're playing a long game. That's the thing that I've noticed, that it's not like the obsessional thing that you think happens with a lot of musicians, where it's like that's all they can do, blah blah blah. It's not necessarily that. It's that actually they're playing a long game, that they put the hours in, but it's not short periods of time. It's years.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And there's this thing, isn't there, where whatever, if you want to be good at something, you've got to spend at least 10,000
hours. Yeah.
Hours doing it.
Yeah, which is true. But
but
it's the long game. You know,
and
that
sort
of
applies
thing.
to a lot of things, doesn't it?
Well, I think it does. And you know, when you sort of look at that with, obviously I only really see it with musicians, but teaching kids who stay with me for a long time and they're learning, and that's what I mean. It sort of creeps up on you, and you sort of go, so hang on a minute, you're doing like, I don't know, grade 6. It's like, where did that come from? It's like, you know, and it's like you realise that all over the time it was just a very, very methodical thing. So I've noticed that with a lot of people.
Isn't it?
It is a commitment.
It's like, you have to say one thing with anything like that, like with music or musician, it's commitment, and it's like you either decide at that whatever age you start that that's what you want to do, and I think the people that are most committed are probably the ones that go on and
Yes.
make the most success of it.
Yes, I
mean,
think that is it.
because I remember when I was at school, I was at boarding school down in Goudhurst, and I was in a dormitory with 3 other guys. There's 4 of us, 2 bunk beds, and I remember saying to them, I was like 14 or something, I want to learn to play the guitar. And I got a guitar, and I had this 10cc songbook, and stuff, and Police was around at the time. And I remember these other 3 guys, like by the end of that term, they'd all kind of, they'd stop doing it.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered to spend all that time doing that. It's taken me 4 days to learn how to play that E chord.
Yeah.
And it's like, so yeah, I mean, and I guess that, that's only a very short period of time, but over the years, whether I played in a band or did anything live, I would always write songs and record songs, because I just have to do it the same way, you do what you do. It's just a passion that you have.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good word for it. Yeah, it's a passion for something.
But when you talk, you've heard these guys when they say, "Oh, I met my hero. I met so and so." It was just like meeting some bloke down the pub, But then they say you shouldn't ever meet your heroes, don't they?
Well, they do say that.
They spoil it because you've perceived them to be a certain way.
Yeah. Maybe. It's funny because I met a few people when I was talking about that band that was in with Roger Moore's son.
Yeah.
And I met him, obviously, and I met a few other people that were attached to that, and that was sort of really weird, because you just think, well, actually, and he was a really nice guy, Roger Moore, actually.
Yeah.
Really normal guy.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of these characters are not normal at all. They're pretty bonkers, And of course, I heard a lot of stories.
He always comes across. He was always, you think, quite a sensible.
He was a really nice chap. Balanced guy. Yeah. And he was, and he spoke about things that, because at the time he was supposed to be doing some, I can't remember what the musical was that Michael Ball was involved in the West End, and he was supposed to be in this thing, and he had to do a bit of singing, and in the end he said, "No, I can't. I just not. That's not good enough for this sort of thing." And especially there's this new guy called Michael Ball, right? Was it called? God, it's going to bug me now. Anyway, I can't remember the name, but. So he was pretty self-effacing, but I know a lot of the people that they knew weren't. And so it's sort of interesting when you meet some people, and it's nice to know that they're okay. They're just normal people.
Yeah, that's it. I feel very fortunate over the years, people I've met through the business. A lot of people I wished I'd met that I never
I was
had.
going to ask you that.
Yeah,
who is it that you would like to have met that you?
Well, I remember, being when my dad died in '94. I didn't know about a lot of these photographs that the company had.
Yeah.
And I'd grown up with like my dad bringing out home all these ELO albums and stuff, and I remember, after my dad died, finding all these photos of Jeff Lynne holding the string packs, and like I was a big early Pink Floyd fan, and I then found a photo of Pink Floyd with Sid Barrett in.
Oh God!
And it was like I couldn't have thought of having a better photo of Pink Floyd than the one with Sid Barrett in with his mirrored Telecaster. Because that was 1967 or whatever, and that was like my favourite era for that band.
Yeah.
But I knew Noel Redding very well from Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to go to Ireland.
Yeah, because he lived in
Southern
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
And he always used to say to me, "Jace, whenever you're out, come and stay at my place." And I went to stay with him one night. I was down near Cork, and we went out, had a meal, went back to his place. I stayed over the night, I got up in the morning and I had this vision that I never get out of my head, going downstairs and Noel Redding standing there in his dressing gown, cooking me breakfast with black pudding. You know. It's like,
That's brilliant.
and it was just like,
Good.
and I didn't really know him that well.
No.
But he knew my dad, you know, he was
Yeah,
up there in that
yeah.
photo.
Yeah.
Fairfield Halls.
Yeah.
And he treated me like, you know, I was somebody.
Yeah.
And it made you feel very special.
Yeah.
And this guy was out there playing with Hendrix.
Yeah.
John Entwistle, you know, I met John not long before he died.
Yeah.
But his history goes a long way back with my dad.
Mm.
So no, it's all round. It's a great industry to be in, and it's you know, I'm very lucky because I managed to do my engineering stuff that I love, and I can do my music stuff, and it's all kind of intertwined with business. You know.
Yeah, because things are going really well at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
which is great.
It's all positive. We've got the NAMM show coming up next week in LA.
Well, it's good that I could come over and talk to you because I know you're busy.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's always great to do this stuff. Always make time for that, you know.
Yeah, well, as I said, I've got quite a lot of different sort of things on the go at the moment. But I'm thinking that you know, once we get this, once I start getting this sort of charity thing and music into the schools and the rest of it, stuff like this podcast would be quite interesting because it's sort of like a counterbalance to that. Because it's this idea of, you know, my vision for this is that meeting people and talking to different people that have made a success out of what they do, you know, that's sort of to do with music or related, you know, in your case, you're playing music anyway, but, you know, the fact that the street, and plenty of dogs in the... God, how many dogs
So
are
you can
there?
edit the dogs out.
No, that's okay. This is quite good. It's,
That's Millie.
so we got Millie.
Jensen
Jensen's the
and
big
Carol.
Right, so we've got
Four.
four dogs in here.
Eliza belongs to Carol, who works next door.
Yeah. I saw.
As you can tell, my wife's
Chuck her out.
dog fan.
Come on.
No, I am as well. So.
I'm sorry.
That's
No,
okay.
it's
No,
all
this is good. We like things to be full of natural. That's it.
Yeah.
Au
organic.
naturel.
Organic.
Organic. Yes.
Come on. Let's go see
See
John.
if you can get them all out.
Come on. Let's go see John. Millie.
I didn't even see this one.
Pablo. Yeah.
Pablo.
Pablo. Yeah.
Brilliant. Are they're all yours?
No, Eliza, the big dark one, is Carol's,
Yeah.
who's in the office next door.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
how can people? Obviously, they can find the company,
Yeah,
but
rotosound.com.
you should. Yeah. So rotosound.com.
Yeah.
And your music and stuff. Well, you're putting it up on.
Yeah, there's
YouTube.
two websites. There's the stuff that I've done, which is just under my own website, which is jasonhow.com.
jasonhow.com.
So just HOW, no E on the end.
Yeah.
And then the band is sodaprism.com.
Right. Soda Prism.
Prism, yeah. Actually, the Facebook page is better because the website is just it's not done yet. So,
No.
but yeah, so that's on Facebook,
Yeah.
and it's all.
So
on
you've got
there.
these amazing jam nights,
Yeah, I have to say,
and you've
about
got some amazing people turning up at them all.
We've got.
focused
I've got a few irons in the fire
Yeah.
for this year, and of course you'll have to come.
Yeah, I must come
Must
down.
come down.
Yes. So this is in the wilds of
It's at the Kentish Rifleman. Do you know Dunk's Green?
Dunk's Green.
You remember? You
So
must
this
have
is.
been there.
Oh yeah, I know the
You know
Kentish
the pub,
Rifle.
yeah,
I do know
yeah.
the pub. In
So
fact,
it's
we did a gig there
right.
with Mike's band about
Oh, yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, and it was all part of some sort of thing that was going on in the green. There was
Yeah.
loads and loads of people there, and somebody had a heart attack and died while they were dancing to some Rolling Stone stuff that we were doing. I
Jeez.
mean, we are a good band, or we were a good band anyway.
Yeah.
But we actually had the guy who was playing bass was a doctor, and his wife was a nurse, and they couldn't revive this guy. But apparently, it was his favourite number. It's his
You're
favourite song.
joking.
No, absolutely, it was his
That's
favourite
terrible.
Rolling Stone song, and and he had a heart
That's
attack and
terrible.
died.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was like quite a good way to go.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, we
But,
hope our jam night.
so-
but,
So there is a yeah.
it's an odd venue for a gig and for a jam night, but we had to move our jam night, which was at a pub a little bit closer to where I live, because it wasn't quite working. So we moved it to the Kentish Rifleman, and we've had 3 there. And this Sunday, the 12th, is the fourth one, first one of this year.
And you've got some good people turning up and playing, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, all the people that show up, you know, we got a good mix of people, and people are coming from, you know, quite a way off. We've got one guy that comes up, great bass player, comes up from Andover
Blimey.
in Hampshire,
Right.
and got a lot of local guys come from, you know, bands locally.
Yeah.
So it's just a really good mix, and we just want to build that up, make it a really good jam night, and promote the company through it, promote Rotosound through it. You know, the band gets to play a few tracks, and so it's all good really.
Yeah. So for those of you in Kent, basically.
Yeah, if you're in Kent, and watch out for the famous people.
Yeah, because there
we
are a few
gonna have
lined up.
some.
Yeah. But you'd have to turn up and see.
I've got a few lined up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Exactly. Cool. And have you got a website for that or Facebook page?
We've got a Facebook page, yeah.
Right. So,
Kentish Rifleman Jams.
all right, okay.
Yeah.
So that's worth checking out.
Yeah.
Great. Well, lovely to speak to you.
No,
Jason,
pleasure.
as always.
Rick, absolutely.
And yeah, so best of luck with everything.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's
Thanks for
good.
coming and doing it.
No, it's
It's,
good. It's good fun.
I hope you got
Yeah.
a bit of usable stuff there.
Well, I hope so.